Good evening. Is this on? Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Folks can start to take your seats. We are going to get started momentarily. Thank you. Okay, good evening. We are about to get started. Welcome to Maynard. Thank you to Maynard for having us. In a moment, I'm going to call out the numbers to our lucky raffle ticket winners for those who put in a raffle ticket that said they wanted to ask a question. We have about an hour for our program, so we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. If I call your number, if you're able, if you could come sit front row center so we can get directly to the questions. If we call your number, you're up here and somebody asks the question on the same topic that you would like to ask, if you either want to pivot to a different topic or ask or return to your seat so that somebody else can ask a different question, we want to get to as many questions as we can. So without further ado, here are our raffle ticket winners. All right. Our first raffle ticket, 326036. Congratulations. All right. Whew. All right. 326010. All right, another winner. Keep it going. Oh, you can keep it for posterity. All right, what do we got? 326007. Shaken, not stirred. Did we find 007? Are they here? Yeah. Maybe they're hiding. All right. Put that one back. 326004. Yahtzee. Oh, dropped one. And 326012. So 012, please. All right, you don't have to move far at all. All right, and our last one, I will call more questions if we do have additional time. 326030. 030. Going once, twice, sold. All right, 326016. Any takers? All right, let's go to the tape. All right, we got a winner? All right. Okay, congratulations to all our questioners and winners so far. Thank you again. Again, if your question is asked, please try to, consider asking either a different question or returning your seat, and we will call another number. So at this point, please join me in welcoming Representative Kate Hogan and Democratic Whip Katherine Clark.
Inspired, and you'll be home soon for a big win, I promise. But thank you all. Thanks for coming from across the districts. Thank you for coming here to organize and mobilize when we need you most. Special thanks to the town of Maynard for hosting this town hall. We're very, very grateful. Can you hear me okay? We know I have an outside voice, so we won't worry too much. You know, they say the best way to predict the future is to create it. And looking at this crowd tonight, I'd say the future of Massachusetts is in good hands. I'm thrilled to welcome my friend and partner in government, Congresswoman Katherine Clark, to Maynard. I want to members of the Maynard Select Board, David Gavin, Lindsay McConchie, Jeff Swanberg, Mike Stevens, School Committee member Mary Brandley, Stowe Select Board member Megan Birch McMichael, State Rep Dan Cena, and Mass Governor's Council Maura Dolan. Thank you all for being here as well. We are living through challenging, some may say harrowing, times, with actions in Washington and the White House having real consequences for our communities. Arresting mayors, trying to intimidate members of opposition, luxury gifts, disappearing citizens. Where does it end? I'm here tonight with a simple message. Massachusetts is not backing down. Our state has worked diligently to protect voting rights, defend reproductive freedom, strengthen gun control, and establish comprehensive climate policies. We're built on a foundation that won't crumble in the face of attack to our liberties and freedoms. In the legislature, we have sent a response to what is happening in our 26 budget. And we have prioritized record education funding, the $150 per student to protect whatever is happening as we move forward, $200 million to continue universal school meals to protect students, no child shall go hungry, historic transportation investments in the MBTA, and especially regional transportation as we move towards more livable communities. Critical funding for food security programs like the SNAP benefits. There's always room for one more. First in the nation, gender-affirming care program, where federal protections were stripped away. Our trans kids remain protected. Our recent House budget also includes creating an immigration legal assistance fund to help immigrants with legal help on civil matters. But here's what makes me most proud. We're doing this work together, state and Democratic partners in lockstep. Congresswoman Clark has been fighting tirelessly in Washington, bringing our Massachusetts values to Congress and ensuring our voice is heard where decisions are made. When Katherine and I meet, we don't just share updates, we strategize, we identify gaps created by federal policies, and find ways to fill them. We coordinate resources to impact and maximize, and most importantly, we listen to our constituents and the residents who know best what communities need. You know, there's an old Massachusetts saying, the revolution started here. From 1775 to 2025, the revolution continues in our town halls, in our state house, on the streets, and in the halls of Congress, where Katherine works every day. None of us will back down. We're not afraid of bullies. Our state has always been a beacon to those who come to our country with a dream to live in freedom, a shining city upon a hill. But this beacon doesn't just shine in fair weather. It shines brightest in the storm, guiding ships to safe harbor. And at our best, that's who we are. At our best, that's who we've always been, and that's who we will continue to be. Some may ask if we can really make a difference when the national tide seems to be flowing against us. To them I say, have you met Massachusetts? Have you met Hagen? This is a state that sparked a revolution, a state that led on marriage equality, healthcare reform, and education. A state where impossible dreams become tomorrow's reality. So tonight, I make you this promise. Katherine and I will be your voice. Where there are gaps, we will fill them. Where there are challenges, we will meet them. The work ahead won't be easy, but we won't be doing it alone. We'll be doing it together and with all of you. Because when Massachusetts stands united, when Maynard and communities across our Commonwealth come together, there is no challenge we cannot overcome, no future impossible to build. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your activism, your advocacy, your decency, and your faith in what we can accomplish together. It is now my honor to introduce my partner in the work. Before us, Majority Whip Katherine Clark. Katherine is the highest ranking woman in congressional leadership. Defender of our values and someone who makes Washington remember that they answer to you. Please, warm Maynard welcome to your Congresswoman, Katherine Clark.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I am so delighted to be here and so grateful that you all stepped out of the rare sunshine into this auditorium. And I am also so grateful and thankful to all of you who had any role in sending Kate Hogan to Beacon Hill. She is... You know it already, but she is one of the most devoted and skilled public servants. And she has been a friend and partner in this work and now in this fight since we served together 15 years ago. We both came into the House of Representatives in Boston, and so grateful, Kate, especially for your work and leadership on environmental protection and clean water, and making sure that when you turn on the tap here, there are no contaminants in that water. That is work you are doing. And when you make sure that it's community leaders like you who are standing up when we see a federal government that is prioritizing the profits of polluters over the protection of people. And it's leaders like Kate who are really holding the line. And it has never been more important to have community leaders like each and every one of you. It is frustrating. It is exhausting. It is chaos by design, meant to wear us down. But by being here tonight, you are saying we are going to stand up And we are going to stand up together because we know that together we are going to be the answer and the protection for our economy, for our democracy, for our health care, for our fundamental freedoms. So we want to get right to your questions, but I'm going to give you a little background on just what has been happening. So we have, there we are. So we have a three-pronged strategy to meet the chaos and the corruption and high costs of this administration. So we have 3 C's of our own: courts, Congress, and community. So in the courts, we had to meet every illegal action with a court action. We have been working with our Democratic AGs and outside partners, including our incredible AG, Andrea Campbell, who is just doing a phenomenal job. So in the first 100 days, we have filed over 220 lawsuits. We have over 130 court orders that have blocked or paused Trump's illegal actions. Even Trump-appointed judges are consistently ruling against him. I've signed 9 amicus briefs. Yes, that is an applause line for our courts. 9 amicus briefs on tariffs, the Department of Education, USAID, the NLRB, Planned Parenthood, birthright citizenship, and 2 for the Consumer Protection Bureau. And we were thrilled to see the release of Ramesa Ozturk. Because we know when you take a Fulbright scholar, a student coming here to study child development and the impact of trauma on kids, who doesn't even have a parking ticket, when she can be abducted off the streets of community here in Massachusetts, it is a shame, and be kidnapped and quickly taken out of state to avoid court orders here. It is because of all of you refusing to let them get away with that she was released. And we are grateful to every single person who went to a rally, said her name, and did not let us forget. So we are thrilled that she is home safely, and there are many more that we have to keep the work going for. So next, we went to Congress, because Congress, we may be in the minority, but we are not without our power, and it is a close minority. So we have to use our unity against this extreme agenda. So we are and remain a unified force on the floor, which means that the Republicans are just mired in their own chaos, week after week, fighting with each other and their numbers are so narrow that even Donald Trump said to Elise Stefanik from New York that she couldn't be the UN ambassador that he promised her. So sad. And took that away from her because he was afraid that we were going to flip that seat. And we've also been calling on the moderates, the so-called moderates, who go home to communities like this and say, I'm not going to touch your health care or your Social Security or your food programs or your public school funding. I will fight for those. And then they turn right around and vote with Donald Trump every single time. So we have just last week put a measure on the floor. It's pretty simple. It's called a discharge petition. If you get 218 signatures, they have to bring it to the floor. And we said, if you keep going home and saying you're not going to touch food programs, you're not going to touch Medicaid, then just sign our discharge petition. So far, crickets, but we are going to keep it up, and we are running ads against them until they sign. And if they won't, we'll see you in the fall of 2026. And then we get to the process that we're in this week called reconciliation. What is reconciliation? It's a process that we can use to get around the filibuster so that there is just a simple majority vote in the Senate. So they've been doing two things. They have voted twice in the House to move this process forward, with over $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid and over $230 billion in cuts to food programs like SNAP and Meals on Wheels and school lunches. The fact that the richest country in the world is considering cutting health care and food programs for hungry kids in order to fund tax cuts for the very wealthiest is yet another shame on this system. But they told us, they promised us, we're not really going to do that until last night when they released this budget at 10 p.m., which is what you always do when you have something you're really proud of. And in fact, they have going to cut with the way they have set it up, the cuts they've made to Medicaid, to the ACA. The numbers we received today is that nearly 14 million people would lose access to health care. 14 million people. So don't tell us, because we're paying attention here. Don't tell us that you're not really cutting benefits. That's exactly what they're doing. And they're trying to make it seem like something else. But to 14 million people, that's a cut. And we haven't seen the Agricultural Committee, where the food programs are. We haven't seen their text. But what they are advancing is they said they were going to cut $230 billion, which is just devastating. But in fact, they're going to cut $290 billion. So there's a little $60 billion kicker we anticipate coming out tonight. So we have to do everything we can to push back. If they want to pass this, they can do it without a single Democratic vote. Then we come to community. And this is where all of you come in. Because of feedback that I got from town halls, we have been doing a few things that were recommended to me by all of you. One was doing shadow hearings, having hearings that Democrats can bring in the witnesses that Republicans refuse to. We've had them on Medicaid, Social Security, SNAP, veterans, and small businesses. And those have all been in Washington, but now we're taking them on the road. We had them down in the Coachella Valley, not at Coachella, but in the Coachella Valley in California, a very immigrant-rich, agricultural-rich community, held a large town hall there. We are now moving to Louisiana this coming Friday. And then we are fanning out from there to Florida, to Georgia, to North Carolina, to Michigan, to Pennsylvania, Virginia, and more to come. So if you have ideas or topics that you would like, or if you'd like to bring one of these hearings here to Massachusetts, we are all ears about that. We also heard you wanted a daily message from Democrats. So we started the daily download. Every single day we are publishing a short, very easy to share message from different members of the caucus, including leadership, so that we can help people follow along exactly what is helping in the House. And then there's holding the GOP accountable. They are getting pummeled at home. They won't hold town halls like this, and we need to keep the pressure up. I've done town halls 4 in our district, but also in Oregon. Last week I was in Indiana, and people are putting this together. So there have been over 100 town halls in other members' districts, or if we couldn't get right into a Republican's district, right on the border, so that people can attend and get the facts for themselves. We had 1 million, I'm sure some of you were there, over 1 million people at hands-off rallies around the country. And we are just so grateful to everybody who has shown up and done that. And then we already talked about the hearings, but the real question is any of this working? Are we all just talking to ourselves, or what's happening? On Inauguration Day, Americans approved of Donald Trump by a 12-point margin. On day 100, they disapproved by 9 points. That's a 21-point swing in 100 days. He beat his own record for lowest approval rating on 100 days. So good for him. There's a real accomplishment. And as we poll, not in districts that are Democratic or lean Democratic, but in swing districts and Republican districts, we are finding that 2 out of 3 Trump voters, people who voted for Donald Trump, oppose this tax cut scheme. And they understand that tax cuts for the very wealthiest at the expense of health care and veterans benefits and public schools and food programs is not what he promised he would do. 60% oppose cuts to food assistance, 71% oppose cuts to Medicaid, and 77% oppose cuts to Social Security. And it's not just in the polling. We're seeing this in elections. We all notice when Elon, remember Elon? He seems to have gone back to Texas for a while here, thanks to all of you. Remember when he went to Wisconsin and said, we're going to buy our way into a Supreme Court election, outspent the Democrat, but because of people like you and many of the organizations around the wall here who called into Wisconsin, it made a difference and the Democrat won. And then we went on to Pennsylvania, 2 special elections in the state legislature, defended a state house seat and preserved our majority, flipped a state Senate seat that Democrats haven't represented in over a century. We're talking ruby red, ruby red. So I just want to say, whatever you are doing, you got to keep it up because it's working. Don't forget that your voice has the most power of anybody's. It is so important that you continue to talk to your neighbors, your coworkers, people in even those cousins that you took off of Facebook and you don't want to talk politics with anymore, re-engage. You have more influence over them than any media outlet, than any politician. It is just born over and over again in polling by the American people. It is your voice that matters. I'd also ask that you amplify Democratic voices. We are in a race for attention. And we have a president who is just a master at keeping and creating attention. He's getting a lot of grief for dressing up as a pope. All of a sudden, he's going to open Alcatraz. And he's very good at keeping the press off balance and trying to keep all of us off balance. So you see things you like, share them. People are getting their news from YouTube, from social media, more than legacy cable. And you have the power to amplify the voices and messages that you like, and we need you to do it. So we hope, these are our districts in play, our 30 friends that we hope to send back home in 2026. This is a growing number of people and districts. And we are already working and advertising in these districts so people at home know exactly who they're voting for, and it's not them. And we need you to tell your personal stories. It is so helpful to us. It makes line items, budget items, come alive. We had a hearing in Washington, one of the shadow hearings that you demanded, and we put together on small business. And I've had roundtables in our district from small business leaders. When you hear the impact of tariffs on those small businesses, they don't have the ability and the flexibility to survive it. And those stories are so powerful for the American people to hear. And they are also stories of compliance. We have these 130 court orders, but I can tell you it is people from our communities that have informed my office of when the payroll isn't being met. The contract funding has not come through, even though it's been ordered. So any information that we can also share with groups that are litigating about what you may know the real world impacts are happening on federal workers, on agencies, on nonprofits, on municipalities. We need and use all of that information. You can share stories by calling us, you can share them on my website, but we really need to hear from you. And above all, we ask that you engage with the incredible groups we have around here when we're done with questions. You don't need to start from scratch. You can join in with one of these organizations that have the infrastructure already to make an impact through legal advocacy, public demonstrations, electoral organizing, and protection. Healthcare for All will shout out Healthcare for All is signing up volunteers to call into swing districts and make sure that folks are telling members of Congress, how important Medicaid is to them. The committee hearing on the Medicaid cuts is tomorrow. And it may extend for a few days, but it starts tomorrow, so it is so timely. And those calls matter. They matter. We track them, we keep note of them, and the pressure really does work. So this is how we are going to resist Trump's chaos. It is how we are going to win the House back, and it's how we're going to reclaim the White House in 28. So I am so pleased and grateful to be here with all of you, and we look forward to taking your questions. Thanks, Kate.
Hi there, my name is Mary Jo Samola and I live in Maynard. And I was just wondering, you mentioned Ramessa Ozturk and people being sent to El Salvador, and over the weekend there were ICE raids in Acton. What are you doing nationally and at a state level to protect our residents and our immigrant communities, and what can we do as neighbors and community members to help?
Thank you. And we're doing several things. One is we are suing them to make sure that they cannot deport people. And when we have a president of the United States who's unclear on whether due process applies to people in this country and has the gall to say he needs to call a friend to see if he really has to uphold the Constitution, we know that when you are taking people like Ramessa, when you are taking people and deporting them to El Salvador, which all of us as taxpayers are paying for, and then he says, oh, we don't know if we can get them back, that is not an acceptable answer. And we have, however oddly they worded it as facilitate, the Supreme Court has an order to the Trump administration to facilitate their return. And we are going to continue to press and continue to bring lawsuits and continue to have demonstrations and talk about this. And we're going into an appropriations process. And just this weekend in New Jersey, we had 3 members of Congress who have an absolute legal right to go to any DHS facility to conduct oversight. They've been waiting over an hour and a half for a tour of this site. They were not rushing gates. They were not there making trouble. They were waiting for an hour and a half. They saw a commotion, went outside, and literally got ambushed by ICE agents wearing masks, shoved one of the members, Representative MacGyver, put hands on another member who is 80 years old, and now are threatening to arrest them. This is so chilling for every single American's rights. If they will do that to members of Congress, there isn't a single one of us in any community that is truly safe. If they will take Mesa off the street in unmarked cars because she wrote an opinion piece in a student newspaper, then nobody is safe. Nobody has First Amendment rights, and nobody has a right to due process. So we are going to keep moving on all fronts, all of them, in the courts, in Congress, and mobilizing around this and keeping the agitation going, because we cannot let them forget and turn the channel on what's happening, because it's deeply, deep impact on every single American and our constitutional rights.
As I had said earlier, in the 26 budget, we have made funds available for legal assistance for all those dealing in civic matters in the state of Massachusetts. Also, DESE has made it clear the Department of Education has stood firm in protecting every child's right to education, regardless of immigration status. And also, in response to an executive order allowing ICE officials to enter, quote unquote, sensitive spaces, including schools and churches, DESE worked with superintendents across the Commonwealth to assure families that they will not share student information with federal agents and without a court order.
Hi, my name is Joshua Ledwell. Thank you both for being here today. We're in what feels like a really urgent political moment, and I could ask many questions about many communities I care about. I'm going to focus on Republicans tearing down and weaponizing federal government agencies. My friends at USAID, NASA, and the U.S. Digital Service have all lost their jobs. My trans friend is about to lose their longtime military career. Delivering a Democratic legislative majority in 2026 does not feel like enough to address the current moment. Maybe the only silver lining of extraordinary events right now is the opportunity for change. So keeping in mind the current Supreme Court makeup, what is the Democratic plan to reverse the damage and bring back durable protections for our rights?
Thank you. So we have to do both things. We cannot give up on any moment. We have to make sure we have secure elections so that when we get to 26, we can actually vote them out. And we have to do every single thing we can, whether it's in the budget process, the appropriations process, that we can to restore this. And you mentioned USAID. Let's just take that as an example, because it is something that most Americans don't really pay attention to because it's foreign aid. But foreign aid is so connected to how our own national security. If you pull back, as this administration has done, and fired people who have been public servants, people working at NASA, USAID, at NOAA, at the EPA, all of them are there and highly trained. Most of these people are highly trained in what they do. Are there efficiencies that we could have? Of course. Should we always be looking for that? Yes. But what we are seeing is you cannot take away sort of the three-part stool that we need, which is a State Department and diplomacy, defense, and development. So we have to do everything we can to make something that most people may not think about, like USAID, relevant, translate it for them, what is happening, and make the story in ways that maybe we haven't done a good job of before. For example, we have seen farmers in agriculture take a huge hit because they were relying on and had planted for USAID contracts. And children are starving every day, and also in Gaza, in Sudan, in places around the globe where we are the ones who are there providing that food. And we have to take note that when we pull back, it's not like it's just a vacuum, which is horrible enough. Others come in. China comes in. Russia comes in. We lose influence and security that we have. So you are right. We absolutely have to win the majority, but we cannot wait to talk about these issues until then. And we have to use every opportunity and leverage point that we have to make a case for these federal workers and for the work they do and what it means to the American people.
And on the state level, I know that Maura Healey has set up a site within the government for anyone that has lost their job at the federal level to send their resumes, to send whatever they may have to the state government to see what we might do to extend our hand and to offer employment at the state level.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. My name is Glenn Cody. I am from the town next over, Acton, where we did just have ICE raids. So thank you for taking a strong stand against these unconstitutional ICE raids. Thank you for standing up for due process and our constitutional rights. Thank you for coming out here and saying that you're willing to do town halls when the Republicans are cowering behind their billionaire donors. And for a party that's so constantly shrieking about waste, fraud, and abuse, when they're attacking Medicaid and SNAP benefits, they don't seem to care about the biggest source of waste, fraud, and abuse, the military budget. The National Defense Authorization Act is approaching $1 trillion this year, and every year, House Republicans attach horrible amendment after horrible amendment after horrible amendment to it. Last year, they attached an amendment that restricted gender-affirming care for trans youth, and it passed. So they're going to do that again this coming year and every year going forward. We should be investing in healthcare, food, and education, not more missiles, bombs, and guns, especially when Donald Trump is abusing his role as commander-in-chief every single day. What is House Democrats' plan for when Trump's bloated, wasteful, hurtful, fraudulent defense budget comes up for a vote? Shouldn't Democrats vote against this bloated Pentagon waste? And wouldn't that help out at the state level when we need more investment in healthcare and food instead of bombs and guns, especially when SNAP and Medicaid is under attack? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And you are absolutely right. The way they are approaching so-called DOGE and going after government efficiency is taking away funding. They fire and then they aim later, if they aim at all. And what they are doing is nothing to make people's lives better, to make things work better, to looking for actual efficiencies, ways we can use tax dollars and make programs work better. Let's just, and I'm getting to the defense budget, but just look at the SNAP program. They're going to cut $290 billion out of food programs. That is so outrageous. It should be so outrageous to everybody. Why don't they make an investment? If they're interested in fraud, one of the leading fraud things is skimming off of the card that people use to get their benefits. If we would put a chip, like we all have in our credit cards, on those cards, we could end that. So if you're serious about it, there are simple things we can do to make these programs better. But what is never looked at is the defense budget. And the Armed Services Committee met 2 weeks ago. They have nothing in this reconciliation process. They shouldn't even really be a part of it. But they wanted to move another $150 billion to the Pentagon. $150 billion when we are destroying health care for low and moderate income people in this country, which even if you have good private insurance, you will pay a cost. So it is long overdue that we look at this budget and we have ideas and plans. Jake Auchincloss, another Massachusetts representative just south of here, has put together a whole plan about how we can look and make changes to the Defense Department that does two things: frees up money to help people and communities find a place in this economy and protect our national security. This is not a choice. We don't have to choose one or the other. That is a false choice that keeps getting presented to us. You can help. Well, you're here, so you are helping, but keep pointing that out. Keep pointing that out. We've got this huge extreme agenda that is taking away the fundamentals that people need to live for a tax cut for people who don't need it and aren't going to notice it. And then at the same time, we continue to feed without any real effort at reform or restructuring or investment in State Department and diplomacy and soft power, which there's nothing soft about development money. Hungry people go to war. Hungry people turn to terrorists who come into their communities because they're desperate. So if we really want security, we have to make those investments in humanitarian aid. We have to look at ways that more bombs, more military is not going to keep us safe. And then when we are tested, as we are being in Ukraine, we don't back away from our allies and our democracies. We stand with them. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Dave Levington from the Lincoln Democratic Town Committee, where we stand behind you 100%.
Thanks, Dave.
My questions have to do with 2028 and our party. I've been impressed by Ezra Klein and his recent book called Abundance, where he basically tells us that our Democratic Party has lost its way. And besides trying to defeat Republicans, we should reform ourselves. I wonder how you feel about that.
Yeah, thank you. I think you just got the biggest applause of the night, Dave. And let me tell you, this is something we have to take very, very seriously as a party, as leadership of the Democratic caucus in the House. We lost the election. We lost the House, we lost the Senate, we lost the White House. And we lost it to Donald Trump, who we have no excuse that people didn't know what they were buying. So as much as we can say, and he has betrayed them, it also says something not very good about where we are, that we did not have that connection to people, and that the accomplishments that we did have, which I believe were real, were not translated. And when people look at us and they say they defend the status quo, they're not fighting for me. And every single race, whether it's presidential or local race, a school committee race, comes down to one thing. Do you see me, and are you going to fight for me? And that is a message that we have to bring to the American people every single day. Because we are fighting for them, but we have gotten disconnected. And I think it's for many things. But like they say in Ezra Klein's book, point out areas where sometimes we get so focused on making it perfect that we lose the thread of progress. we lose the thread of progress. And we have to do better for people. We all know it here about housing. We have to be realistic. We must build more housing. We must build more transportation. We have to be able to build things again here. And we will always be the party that protects the environment, that understands it. But let's use some of these systems we have to take the incredible investment we made in the IRA and bring it to fruition. It doesn't do any good to be in a bill. It doesn't do any good to have money in a line item that isn't allocated and getting out there. So we've got to do all these things, and we couldn't have more urgency or higher stakes. So we have an incredible contrast to make, but we also have to do the work, and it's why I believe so passionately in going to places where people don't see Democrats very often, not looking for votes, but looking to have those conversations. And it's why I've been in Indiana. I'm going to Mississippi. I'll be in Alabama. We're going to Florida, to places to say, here we are. We want to hear what we're missing, and to let them know that we see them and that we are going to fight for them. And that's how we do it. And then we have to have a very clear strategy so the American people don't want to just vote against all of this, which we certainly do, but they want to hear a clear vision. Where are we going? How are you going to make things better for me? Because we did not connect people with the investments we made in the infrastructure bill, the jobs we created, getting every lead pipe in this country out, making sure we have broadband throughout this country and throughout Massachusetts, the bill that brought chips manufacturing back to this country, bringing those jobs, the IRA keeping health care down, which they are stripping out those protections in the ACA in the reconciliation bill we're seeing this week, the investments in a green revolution, which we should be leading. And we've got to make all those good pieces of legislation come alive for people and understand that they know the system is broken. And we've got to acknowledge that. They're not making it. And be very clear about the vision and the concrete steps we're going to take to make it work better for them. And so that's my promise to you, that we're going to do that as House Democrats, and we're going to start because we have to win in 26, but 26 is the prelude to winning in 28. And so we take that job and how people are viewing Democrats extremely seriously, and we're having tough internal conversations and making changes from everything to how and where we advertise, to where we meet people and meeting them in their town halls and meeting them in their town squares, literally and figuratively.
I didn't read the book, but what I would have to say is we need to bring a lot of humility to how we see the next race. And we need to, I don't feel like I know exactly what it is that we need to bring to win, but I do know that here in Massachusetts, we really are working our tails off to get ourselves out of a lot of difficult situations. One of them being housing, we know that. We know how difficult it is. The other thing being health care. We try to cover everyone. What are we going to do when we look at the federal government? But in Massachusetts, we like to solve problems, and I think at the state level, you have the opportunity so often to work at the ground level. So every single issue has a face, every solution has people involved in them, and I know that if we're going to win the next time, we have to have a future that we're seeing together. There is no way you can get anything done, and this is what I have learned as a state representative, without a shared vision from the people that you're representing. And that has to be us out there telling them what that vision is, sharing it, and having them help to grow the vision of how we want to see the future to look. And then we have hope, and now we're sharing that hope. So, you know, I don't think I have the answer, but I know that humility and hope may be the two ingredients we need to look at seriously. So, thank you.
And I'm going to call two more lucky winners to the queue. So we have 014, come on up. And then, I know. And then 021. Please join us up front if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you, representatives. I appreciate your taking time to speak to people directly. It's really critical at this time. My name is Dan Hepner. I live in Belmont with my wife and family. We moved, the personal story that you want to hear is that we moved from California 3 years ago. Why did we move from California to Boston? Because this is the epicenter for biomedical research. We work in this space. You haven't mentioned that in depth tonight, but my concern having moved here is that that dream is fading away in the face of actions at the federal level. Both higher education and biomedical research through effects on the NIH and other parts of that whole entire industry are under direct attack. And my question is, where do you see the future of Massachusetts as a leader or as a follower in that space? My concern is that we're going to lose our position unless there's dramatic actions, and I wonder what those actions may be.
Thank you so much for bringing this up. I think it is hard to believe what is happening. We are the best in the world in Massachusetts. No offense to California, but you did move here. We are the best in the world at taking things out of the academic lab and putting them in the marketplace. And we are global leaders in this. And it doesn't happen by accident. We have public investment in NIH that supports the research in just our area at Harvard and MIT and Tufts and Brandeis and UMass and all sorts of universities throughout this area and in my district. We are the best in the world at this. And what we are seeing is this cut off of those research dollars and dismantling of NIH. And what we are going to do is cut off the innovation economy, and we are going to cut it off, I fear, for generations. Because there was recently a poll in Nature magazine of scientists, 75% of them said they are looking to move abroad. Because Europe is saying, we'll set up the lab for you. We welcome you. We should be stapling a green card to these doctorate students' diplomas and saying, we welcome you here. Stay. Be part of our innovation. And instead, we're sending them home. And worse than that, we're cutting off these research dollars, the basic science that then jumps into the marketplace. And whether it's Lincoln Labs or MITRE, all these other organizations that help us make that connection, they are all losing their government contracts. And it is just handing, not only is it livelihoods and what keeps our economy locally here going, it is also just handing this competitive edge to our rivals. And this isn't just in 4 years we'll fix this. And what is so discouraging, discouraging doesn't, I'm trying not to be as profane as I've been in the last 100 days, so I'm working on it, so I'll leave it with discouraging, but is that if you take, I served on appropriations for many years before I went into leadership. Tom Cole, who is the Republican chairman of appropriations, he was always a fair guy. I always got along with him. You know, we disagreed about a whole lot of things, but he was a fair guy. Since Donald Trump has come into office, I don't recognize him. He says outrageous things like appropriations aren't law, it's an advisory. An advisory? That is why you send representatives to vote on budgets that represent you. And they're not advisory, they're actual law. And he is the one who protected those research dollars, the indirect costs. He is the one, and he is nowhere to be found explaining it. And he says, well, I got a call into Elon, I might get the University of Oklahoma to be okay. That's not how the system works. NIH funds all different universities and research that then is picked up and taken globally by all sorts of different companies and nonprofits. And so the idea that we would give this away, it's not only economically just malpractice, it's all the hopes of people who need a cure, who are facing a diagnosis for a loved one, who we're saying, we don't care. We don't care. This is a president's fight with Harvard, and all of the rest of it is expendable for this particular fight. I've said many times, only this administration can make Harvard an applause line, but they are standing up. They are standing up when we needed them to stand up. And they do have that money and that backing to say we're not going to roll over. So we all have to be part of that fight. And all of you are asking what you can do. Talk about it. I know, I hope I'm wrong, but I bet everyone in here has been touched by cancer. Very likely everyone in here knows someone struggling with Alzheimer's, diabetes, all these cures that we have come so far. And why would we stop now? Why would we do this to ourselves? So I think this is one of the most devastating issues as we go. I brought to the State of the Union, I brought a mom from Waltham whose 4-year-old son has a very rare brain cancer. And he's doing okay, but the chemo that he's already received has caused cognitive impairments for him, physical impairments, but he's alive and his scans are clear. But that's the last NIH-funded protocol. There is no other for her to go to when that's over. And she said that it may not be there for my son, but I want that research for the next family. And those are the stories of people, our neighbors, our family members, that are being just casually tossed aside as somehow this investment, is not worth making in universities that this president deems unworthy or too woke or whatever nonsense excuse he has. And we're seeing it play out. It's all interconnected to many of these ICE raids and this real attack on foreign students. So there aren't any easy answers at this point in what to do, but we have to keep up this fight because it will be generations before we're able to get back to where we are.
Goodness, I'm the last question before the Celtics game. Sorry, everyone. I'm Sue Levine from Maynard. I also work at Lowell Community Health Center in Lowell, Mass. So my question really is, how are we going to protect our nation's federally qualified health centers? In Massachusetts, we have over 50 community health centers serving 1 in 7 of our residents. Yeah. The Medicaid cuts for our health center, we have an $80 million budget. We serve 41,000 patients in Lowell, but they come from around the surrounding communities. It could be modestly a $10 million cut for us. That's devastating, let alone the fact that, covering my Lowell Community Health Center pin, we can't talk about civil rights and DEI and our gender-affirming care. So I'm terrified between the Medicaid cuts, the DEI executive orders, the 340B program, and our federal grant, which is from the 330 program, which you know. How are we going to sustain ourselves for Massachusetts and the nation?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And we've been touring our community health centers, and let me just thank you in public for the work you do. Community health centers are just... They are such a lifeline for people, and it's just so callous. It's so casually cruel what we are doing here, all in pursuit of tax cuts. Like, I know I keep repeating this because it's so hard to take in, but these Medicaid cuts, we do have them on the run, but we got to keep the pressure up because they have to have a bill that absolutely matches the Senate, and we have made that politically untenable for them, and now we gotta finish it off because they're going to do something this week. It's not going to be good. It looks like they're trying to tie up taking away benefits under a veneer of work requirements, but we see through what they're doing. It is just creating red tape to take away benefits. And meanwhile, community health centers and rural hospitals will close. Nursing homes will close. So it's the individual patients, but the funding for Medicaid to community health centers, and Kate knows the state cannot pick this up. And that's what Republicans keep telling us. They're like, the states are just going to have some skin in the game, is what they said last week. Skin in the game? There is no way they can pick up the void we are going to leave with Medicaid. You just can't do it. And then you add on what we're creating for veterans and those benefits, the money they're planning to take away from public schools, from food programs, and we're already seeing it impact school lunches here. We're already seeing it impact our food banks and the commodities they receive. So there is no way states can close this gap. As good as Kate is, as good as Maura Healey is, they can't do it. And so the buck has got to stop in Congress, and we have to stop them. And that's where all the groups around here and all of you come in. The pressure on them is enormous, and it seems like they're just going along, but they are feeling it, and they are fighting between the so-called moderates and the Freedom Caucus people who want more cuts. And we have to keep that divide between them so they're unable to pass this in the next few weeks. They want to pass the Medicaid cuts by Memorial Day, and they want it all signed by 4th of July. This is how they want to celebrate 4th of July and freedom and equality and justice for all. I think that's what it's about, by cutting people's health care. And the impact on community health centers and rural hospitals is going to be swift, and it's going to be devastating. Kate, I don't know if you want to...
I don't want to end on this note. I really don't. Well, we're as worried about health care as you are, because it's the kind of work that's been going on in Massachusetts, trying to make everyone covered by health care. I mean, we know that has been our life's work for the last 10 or 15 years. Yeah. We have a $9 billion rainy day fund, and that only goes so far. But I do believe that what we need to do is to rise. I mean, we have to let people know this is not okay. We have to make it clear, both at the state level, from the State House, and in joining with Congress and the Democrats in Congress to say this is not okay. We cannot have this happen. I believe it. And I think when you talk about stories in healthcare, stories about not being covered, I mean, that we've lived through that before. I just think we have to really rise up. If there is one thing to hold on to, if there's one thing to fight, I really do believe that it has to be health coverage and health care being made available, and that the Medicare and Medicaid cuts, we have to rise up around them when it happens. We don't know. We passed our budget. People are covered in our budget. That then is going to be impacted by what happens in Washington. But when it does, you know, we won't just take it sitting down, I promise you that. When it does happen, we will not take it sitting down, and I want you to know that.
And, yeah. Renee,
Oh, you want to go?
just close.
So we are over time. Did you want to add something to that response? I'm sorry.
No, do we have any
we
more
have time
questions?
for one more quick
great.
question.
Okay, great.
We are over time, so if we could do a quick question, and then we have all these wonderful organizations here. Please go visit them, sign up, get involved. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Elisa Dan. I'm here from Maynard. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So first, when I'm nervous, I give compliments. So, Whip Clark, I love your blazer. Okay, so I am just a normal person here. I am the parent of 2 daughters here at Fowler, and I work very part-time at a shop downtown in Nason Street in Maynard. My husband is a tattoo artist at a shop in Concord. We have Commonwealth care. Our kids are on Mass Health. But we make do, and we are happy and safe. And I meet every week with 3 of my neighbors on our street to talk about how we can organize more, how we can protect our communities, devote ourselves to our communities, help our community more. And it still doesn't feel like enough. We protest. We call. Every day, your staff might recognize my voice. We are signing petitions. We are doing everything you have said. And I have listened to your town halls and everybody's town halls, even other mass reps. And the 3-prong strategy, every day it becomes clearer and clearer that it is not working. So what I would like to know is when it fails again, and he ignores another Supreme Court order because he's doing that now, when he continues his acts of seditious conspiracy, when will you talk about, at least just talk about, impeachment? Why have none of the Democrats, why have none of you talked about the still constitutionally viable avenue of the 14th Amendment, Section 3? This is a disqualified criminal in our White House. He should not be here. How many more of our students have to be disappeared, of our community members have to be taken from our streets, of children across the globe in Africa and in Gaza? How many people have to be starved before we take these people out? They should not be here. Please, impeachment and 14.3. When?
First of all, I don't think you're nervous at all. I think you know exactly what you want to say and what you want to see done. And here's the thing. First of all, we cannot, I will talk about impeachment, but we cannot say it's not working. Like, you cannot let them give you that feeling. That is part of their strategy. That is exactly what they want each and every one of us to say. There's nothing we can do. It doesn't matter. It all matters, and it is working. It is not with the speed and the urgency that any of us want, and that children in Gaza, children in Boston, students around this country, moms, dads, seniors, disabled people who are terrified that they're not going to make it and that they are going to take away everything from them, even though they have worked hard like your family and play by the rules. And the fact that you can sit here and say, we get a little help because we need it, and you know what? We work hard and we're happy. That's what we want for every single family, and to rip this away on so many different levels, whether it's accepting a luxury jet called a palace in the sky from Qatar, that is against the Constitution, and those hits are going to keep coming. And I know that we have to accept certain things, but we don't have to not fight against them. Impeachment, we need to get 5 members of the House to vote with us. And I'll tell you what we have on the other side of the aisle. I am so tired of the conversations in private where they will tell me what they think about Donald Trump, but when they come to the floor, they will vote with him every single time. They are not voting for impeachment. They're not going to do it. So what we have to do is make it inevitable. We have to elect people that will. Whether those are independents, whether they're Democrats, we have to elect people that will. And we have to make the political pressure cooker on them so there is no alternative. Because we can file all the impeachments that we want. If they did not impeach him after January 6th, we got to remember these are the same people. And the people who did vote for impeachment, they sent them home. They sent them home. There's one left in the House, one. So impeachment is our constitutional tool, ultimately, to hold him responsible. But we can't get the votes right now. So what all of us have to do, and what is working, I want you to know this, your protest, your voice, it is the power. The power always resides with the people, not with Washington, not with politicians. It's with you. It's with you, and it is working. His poll numbers are dropping. Polls are polls, they're snapshots, but his numbers on the economy are down here. You know what happens when president's poll numbers drop? All of a sudden, the Republicans decide maybe it's not a good bet to follow him. And we've got to keep it up. We got to protest. We've got to, do all the things that we can do to disrupt the floor if we get there. We have to keep bringing the lawsuits. We cannot lose faith in our institutions and our court, because that is what they want to take from us. They want to intimidate and bully us into compliance. And we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. And so I always think of my friend, and I'm sure some of you have heard me tell this story before, of John Lewis, who I never got over getting to be on the House floor and calling him a colleague. I just never got over it. And he would say, I'd say, how are you, Mr. Lewis? And he would say, you have to call me John. And I'd say, okay, Mr. Lewis. And I got to go with him several times to Selma, and to go on that trip with him and to walk over that Edmund Pettus Bridge. And the bridge has this sharp rise up, and then it gets very flat in the middle. So you're almost all the way over the bridge before you can see what's on the other side. And I think about him, this young John Lewis in his early 20s, marching across. And when they were already really committed to crossing that bridge for voting rights for all of us, then they could see the full violence in front of them. The state troopers, their neighbors, all there, wishing them great harm, and in fact, causing great harm to them. But then they did what you're doing. They came back and brought more people. And they made it. And they got the civil rights law passed. And John Lewis never stopped fighting, and he never stopped believing in the fundamental goodwill of his neighbors. And we cannot let them take that from us. We cannot let them divide us. And if we pull their electoral power away, if we take away their political power and show our outrage and the urgency, we are going to get through this. To get to D.C.? What do you mean, like physically come? Yes. We'll make we will talk to you after. But we have I'm on my fifth mall protest, so people are coming. I was there on the mall for Medicaid last week, there for trans rights the week before. Over 100, over 150,000 people at the Hands Off rally at the Washington Monument. We had a group of hundreds of people there just a few weeks ago saying, hands off these tax cuts. We are not for tax cuts for billionaires. So people are coming, and if you need help getting there to have your voice heard, we need everyone to participate. But whether it's on the, in Boston, in Maynard, writing letters to the editor, it all matters, and it's working. It's too slow for any of us. We don't have any patience for this corruption that we're seeing, this shredding of our Constitution. But don't you ever give up, because you're how we get out of this. And we are so grateful to you and to all of you for being in this fight.
I just want to say that we will be going through hard times, and that my office is here. My office always listens, and please know that you can always count on us to pick up the phone and help you. We've done it through many difficult times, and we'll continue to do it. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and please, please, please keep hope. Keep hope in your heart, because we're going to move through this. We're going to move through this. We're going to move through this. Thank you.
Thank you.